Sheets, you're live, by the way.
I'm live.
Every time it's after 10:55 a.m., it'll be live.
Okay.
How's it going, man?
No, going good. How was your weekend?
Good. You had a nice little baseball run yesterday, I see.
I did.
Well, we love to see that. And we're ready for the big football. Your least favorite time. You're probably going to win some little MLB slate or something today instead.
Oh, I thought that's what we were doing. We're not going over the MLB slate. That we're
nope, I changed the title just now, so it doesn't say MLB.
Oh, that's my fault. Sorry about that.
No, I got it. It's a good one now.
Thanks, Brody.
I figured we'd go over MLB, like NASCAR and EPL soccer, and then if we have time, maybe we'll touch on the football.
Sheets' dream. All right. Well, I'm ready to make some money today. Let's get into it.
I'm actually really ready. Actually, I actually have a lot of notes for today, so I'm actually going to be contributing.
Oh, wonderful. All right.
I need those winners sheets. I'm ready.
So do I.
Yep. All right, here we go. So let's talk about it. We'll start off with you then, Sheets, with the favorite games to stack. I think there's a lot of ways to go, like outside of the one obvious game, and there's a lot of weather that's sort of affecting some of the maybe potential passing situations that you might want to attack in Baltimore. Obviously, we weren't probably going to play a bunch from New England and the Jets anyway, but horrible looking weather there, where the defenses definitely both look really good. And you're going to have, you're going to have some weather in Washington as well. Not quite as bad, but still not great. And even a little bit of rain in Miami. So it's definitely some things to consider. With that said, Sheets, what games are you looking at stacking the most heavily today?
Well, once again, put everything in context. I mean, I think you have to approach the answer to that question in part on what types of contests you're thinking about. So I'll just gotta go into what I'm playing today first. I am going to be doing 150 of the of the lottery. I'm also going to be doing one. I'm going to be doing one Wildcat, and it's hard to distinguish between all the different power sweeps they have going on or whatever. So I have I'm playing one entry in each in one of the three maxers, and I guess conventional wisdom. I guess it makes sense is that if you want to play the Vikings Chargers game, it's probably more suited, I guess, for three max and single entry stuff, and a little less forced in the lottery. But it was really funny. I was listening to some content during the week, and a lot of people are seeming to suggest that the gap between that game and everything else is so wide that you shouldn't really be trying to force it out and just kind of eat it. I'm still of the belief that there's enough variance in football where you don't need to just go freaking 50% Chargers Vikings in lotteries. You know what I mean? Right. And so I mentioned before that I prepared like all these different teams and all these different position stuff. And it actually is very helpful to me to do that, because what I did was I put a little thing saying, okay, who's the chalk good plays and who are sort of the pivots? And within like each position, like there were pivots from like the same types of teams kind of showing up. And it made sense for what types of stacks would be pivots. So with all that said, the Chargers Viking game certainly looks like, the highest projected, most likely outcome on the slate. But here are the other teams that I'm kind of into. One of them is something I brought up earlier in the week, which I thought was going to end up getting just like this kind of like hipster play steam. I don't think it really has. Is this Lions Atlanta game? So that's one that I'm going to be pivoting and playing a decent amount of. Another one that this is kind of gross, but I'm getting some Seattle, and it's a tough matchup there. But I'm still getting some of that as kind of a pivot. And then I'm going to go back to the other thing that I mentioned earlier in the week, which I said that I wish the slate ended then. I'm gonna take a shot with the Chicago thing, and you get to play Kansas City's just kind of as an unintended consequence of that. And I have one more, if you want to know, one more just kind of like weird, wild kind of like team that I don't know if anybody's gonna play, but I'm gonna take some shots with the Saints. And like you get Michael Thomas and Olave are going to be unowned. If you want to play even what's his name, Taysom Hill, like you could try a little of that. But again, for lottery tournaments, stuff like that, I think that's not the worst idea in the world. So
I love the point you made right off the bat that it does depend on the types of tournaments. I am much more likely in the three max and single entry to get to more Chargers and Vikings. I also think the game is so much better. I agree. I'm on that train where I don't think you want to just generally be fading the game. There will be something from that game in almost all of my lineups. But I also think that one way you can do something different, because I think they have 9 turnovers already, the Vikings. They turn the ball over so much and Cousins gets so rattled under pressure. Playing the defense is even a way to get exposure to that game. Playing Addison, who will be lower owned, playing some Osborne, playing Hawkinson, playing Gerald Everett. These are the ways you can get off of the chalk while staying in that same game environment. And if the variance goes your way in the best game environment, then you're running away from everybody because everybody else is playing the same pieces from that game. And to answer in terms of what we're playing this week, I also want to respond to some of the other stacks you mentioned, but I'm playing 6 in the 333. I like to go for that the Wildcat. I'm playing 6 of the 150s, and I'm playing 50 in the Millionaire Maker, and then the single entry, $100 single entry, a bunch of $50, $25, $100, $200 single entries to try and get that done. And I am much more likely to use the Cousins and Herbert stacks in there. And when you brought up New Orleans, I actually think that game is kind of sneaky, and Rody and I talked about it. We'll get over to Rody's thoughts in a minute. The one thing I wanted to ask you, though, is like, you can't play Derek Carr with those guys, right? Like, that just seems crazy. I think you could double stack.
No, I'm going to tell you who I'm going to play with those guys. But before I do that, there was one, just because I just forgot to mention it, is that the Jacksonville-Houston game as well. That's as well. Jacksonville's kind of like the logical, not pivot off of Minnesota.
Yeah,
about that. But Houston has pieces you can play as well. What I would probably do, and just try to learn from you in playing like the Saints, is I would pair Thomas, and Olave with Justin Fields. You know what I mean, or something like that.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. And it's because the hardest part for the Saints thing is that they have those great receivers. You want to do it, but then you realize that every short down yardage thing, you're going to get Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Yeah.
So I actually like the idea of playing Taysom Hill a little bit with one of those receivers, and maybe playing Jordan Love on the other side with the cheap receiver Reed.
Right.
That way works really well, and that's something that Rody and I discussed earlier this week. It was really well pointed out by Rody, and I'm a man of my word, so I got myself some of those Jordan Love lineups. But I like what you said, Sheets, and I especially like the Chicago part of it. There's a lot of perception out there, and take it for what it's worth. I don't care what you think about Fields as a real quarterback. The fact is, the guy has the biggest upside of any player on the slate, along with Lamar every time they play because of the rushing upside. It is KC. They could get jumped. They could score some garbage time touchdowns that could win you a GPP in this kind of a game. There's no guarantee that the Chiefs come out just looking super sharp. Mahomes still looks a little fragile on that ankle to me. It's not like the Chiefs. We know the Chiefs are going to be up 30-0, but even if they are, unless they bench Fields, I think you're getting some garbage time points, and I think there's enough upside for him specifically in that game. So I really like that Chicago KC call. I'm not getting as much to the Mahomes side of it because of the chalk and the price, but I like the simple. You go Fields and you go, what's his name? Fields to Moore. You run it back with Kelsey, and you're good to go. Anyway, Rody, what stats do you like on this slate?
Yeah, you guys mentioned a lot of the good ones. Maybe I was hoping Sheets didn't say the Jacksonville game one, because that actually has one of the higher pace just behind the Minnesota Chargers game. A pace tracker. It's very fast. Another one you just talked about, kind of using Lamar or whatever. There's a pace up in that Baltimore game. I know there's some weather concerns there, but there's some pace up in that. And Zay Flowers is good in that stack. So, and then the Atlanta-Detroit game I'm on a lot, and then the Green Bay one that Sheets talked about with the Saints side of it, and we talked about in our pick show a little cheap Jordan Love with some Mike Thomas is looking real good in the short game. Getting a lot of dump offs there, playing that stack's good. So those are probably the ones I'm going to be the heaviest on. A lot. Those main ones I just mentioned, plus you guys. So
nice. And Rich pointing out that Mooney's a good play. Mooney left the game early last week, for those of you who didn't catch it, so don't fall for the necessarily Chase Claypool love if you're going to play that. I like the Mooney idea a little bit. Anyway, in the Chicago game. So I do want to jump over. I'm going to jump into my stacks real quick. I actually have them ranked. The thing that I didn't think I was going to do. So the Chargers and Minnesota clearly number one, the most exposed I have. I love the Houston-Jacksonville game. I'm on both sides of it. I like the Herbert stacks, but I actually prefer the Stroud stacks. You double stack Stroud with receivers, then you can do whatever you want elsewhere. I have some of that I have some of the double stack in that game with both Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, because you can get there pretty easily. So I like that idea. I have that as the second favorite for me. I have the third favorite as Chicago KC, but that's more, just because I have Kelsey in a ton of lineups. The one I've gotten onto the most is Miami. I'm very, very, we have no Waddle. I do think Hill will get some ownership, but you have the super cheap Durham Smythe and River Craycraft. I like the idea of using those guys in a double stack with Tua, and you can run it back on the other side with either Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. One of those three would be my preferred run back. But I like that game as my fourth. That it was going to be Buffalo way earlier in the week. I have them now sixth on my favorite stacks, and I have Indy Baltimore fifth. So that's basically my stacks for the week. We'll transition over to quarterbacks, which is basically going to tell you who we're playing, tell you the stacks. But I think it's worth talking about. Brody, why don't you start this one off with quarterbacks and talk about your exposure there?
Yeah, obviously, Herbert and Kirk Cousins are going to be the top guys, but like Trevor Lawrence looks pretty good. We talked about the Houston CJ Stroud. I really like. So I did like the $3.20 max. I got a lot of these cheaper quarterbacks like Stroud, Jordan Love. I'm even in the Atlanta Detroit game. I don't mind playing some Ritter and then some of the Detroit pieces in that game. And I did do a Gardner Minshew and Andy Dalton stack in that Seattle Carolina game for Dalton in like the long shot big 400,000 entry stuff. So I got those, and Minshew in the Indy side running back with like some of that. So, but obviously my main guys are going to be the top guys like Herbert, Cousins. I like a lot. Jared Goff, I got some. I haven't built my big lineups yet, so I'm going to see how chalky I end up with those. Like if I just go with the main guys and then get different with pieces, or not. But I built a lot of cheap quarterbacks in some of these lineups today, so that's kind of what I'm doing.
Makes sense. How about you, Sheets? I'm sure it's similar to your stacks, but what do you got at quarterback?
Yeah, so again, this is the way I kind of broke down my positional stuff. Again, like the chalk, like most logical plays are going to be pivot. Rivers and Cousins. But yeah, a Ritter, like you mentioned, CJ Stroud, I like. Geno Smith, getting to some of that. Mahomes, I mean, if you can make it work, that's good. Justin Fields, I mentioned before, and Goff. So yeah, I am pretty much getting the same types of guys. And once again, I'm not getting to what's his name? To Lamar, which always frightens me a little bit. But that's just, that's just kind of my cross to bear, I guess, is that I just don't have him.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't have everybody. That's part of my problem. And I am a little too spread out at quarterback, but I really tried to get 30+% or 25+% of a ton of players in my secondary stacks, because I do want to spread out a little bit at quarterback today. The obvious plays being Cousins and Herbert, as you mentioned. I actually have as much Tua. I think I have more Tua than I do anybody else right now. Just because, look, when no one's going to go a certain way and the guy, has just been going nuts, and you've got a very easy pay up, pay down to pair with, so it kind of flattens it out. It makes for a really, really nice stack. So I like the Tua stacks. My above 10% guys are Josh Allen. This is how spread out I am. Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Herbert, Cousins, and Tua. I also do have 8% each of Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. I think I might end up with a little more Stroud by the time we're done, but pretty much similar to what you guys are saying. And then, I'm dabbling with a little Geno, a little Ritter, a little Love. But mostly I want to focus on the big six that I have in the games that I mentioned. So that's what I'm doing. All right, Cheats, we'll turn it over to you now and start off talking about running back. I am definitely more concentrated here than I planned. Well, I'll just say I'm going to end up playing a lot more of the two chalky running backs than even the ownership will. I don't care. That's just what I'm doing. And I think there's plenty of ways to get different elsewhere. So Sheets, what are you doing at running back?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of which two those are. So this is what I have. So I have the four kind of chalky running backs. I have Joshua Kelly, Zach Moss, AJ Dillon, and Tony Pollard. I have them all pretty. I mean, I have them all projected as pretty highly owned as logical, and I don't really have much of an issue with any of it. If you wanted to pivot, Madison coming out of the Viking game, but he's going to show up anyway as part of like Viking stat. I'm going to go back to what's his name from the primetime game, and I really like the way he played. And I remember I came out of that game thinking, okay, Ford's going to be 75% owned. We have to figure out whether to freaking fade him or not. And it turns out that he's just gotten lost. either that or the people come up with good reasons maybe why he shouldn't be so chalky. You know, whatever it is. I'm going to play him probably more than the field. A couple of other kind of like, I guess, pivots, whatever. Guy that nobody's really wants to play because he's kind of like, just, I guess, suck. I don't know, but Miles Sanders, I might try him again, and that's like really frustrating and annoying. But again, just to have a couple level lower owned guys, and two other guys that are on my list here are Pacheco from Kansas City. That's obviously a pretty decent game script if that works out the way it's supposed to. And also a team that you mentioned earlier. Again, this is not easy considering they're going to be an underdog, but Javonte Williams from Denver. So those are basically my running backs.
That makes a lot of sense. Rody, how about you at running back?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I'm a little lower on Ford, so I'll probably maybe bump that up a little bit. You know, Javonte Williams I like with some Hill, obviously. Miles Sanders I do have a little bit of. Mostert as a guy I have in that Miami game a little bit more too now. Madison I'm very high on. I mean, he's a lot lower owned than Jefferson and some of the other guys, so I feel like getting him a little bit more is what I want to do. Zach Moss, obviously, I like him. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to pop a lot more. There's a word come out that he's going to get a lot of work. He's going to be the featured back, so I'm trying to get some of him in. I really like that game too. I think he catches passes and can run this week, so he's a guy that I really want exposure of. Kenneth Walker in the afternoon game, I think I like him a little bit. That faster pace game, I do like the passing more on the Baltimore side, but like Gus Edwards is a lower owned play that I'm starting to dabble with a little bit. Also, Aaron Jones is likely to play today. He's out practicing on the field. I just want to know, like a lot of people, AJ Dillon's in the projections a lot of places higher up because they thought Jones was going to not play today. So watch out for that. The projection should be updating with Jones in more. So be wary about that. Couple lower owned guys, maybe. I don't like. I threw him in a couple of like 400,000 entry lineups, like Kendry Miller and Rashawn Johnson, like low owned guys for Chicago. Just guys that we were high up on coming into the season, just maybe get some more work. But there's a lot of Saints backfield, like they're kind of mixing and match. And then you also got Taysom Hill a lot of times taking away stuff there. So be careful with those. Just playing him some large field stuff. Josh Kelly. Could have a big game. Minnesota does suck against the run, so you know I'm lower. I've been lower on these chalky running backs. It's been working out the first couple of weeks, but you know maybe he actually does something good, and that would take away a lot of the passing game if he gets a couple touchdowns too off of Herbert. So I might have to get a little bit more exposure to Kelly. Some of the guys I'm trying to get a little bit more of.
If I could comment on a couple of things. First of all, once again, for whatever reason, I just keep forgetting to mention the Jacksonville game. So Etienne is obviously going to look like a decent play as well.
I just was about to say that too.
I think he's a little higher owned than I kind of would want, but that's one thing. The other thing is good shout out there for the AJ Dillon. I wasn't aware that Jones was playing. So I imagine that the projections are going to update.
It's not official yet.
No, yeah, I was about to say not official, but we got word from people showing videos. He's out there practicing right now and running.
Well, so it's something to look for. Okay.
So it's something to look for, but we've been waiting on that too as well. So,
but the one thing I wanted to address the Butt Bongo Fiesta comments in here. He says someone recommends a running back versus the Titans, and every week that running back gets no points versus the best run defense in the league. Okay, I want to talk for like just a couple of minutes. As you know, as some people know, I do an MMA betting breakdown, and 95% of the purpose of that is to show you kind of ways to kind of gauge psychology and figure out like what people are on and what industry people say and how groupthink just kind of piles on one another over the course of the week. And I do that with respect to a lot of things. And if I had a computer that would kind of identify the key like cool thing to say literally all week was the fact that the Titans are the pass funnel. Okay. Yeah. Literally, I've heard the term pass funnel more in the last week than I have since 2018, where people actually cared about it. Okay. Like, really. And just all freaking week long. So I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'm not saying whatever. I'm just saying that don't everybody believe their own bullshit like too much. You know what I mean? Like don't everybody sure just because something likely to happen that it is like going to happen. You know what I mean? And the other thing is that when they say, like every week we recommend the every week is a grand total of 1 week. Okay, like it's literally 1 week people recommended a running back against Tennessee and it didn't work. Okay, so and remember in that situation you had the Chargers with like zillions of passing options. You know what I mean? That whatever it is. So don't. I'm not saying that Ford is like such an amazing player, whatever it is. But remember, like just because like it's a cool thing to say that it's a pass funnel or whatever it is. Like they say in whatchamacallit, in MMA, all fights start on the feet. Like likewise in football. Most teams do like to try to run the ball a little bit, okay, to start off with. So I'm just saying, don't get too geared into like the Twitter narratives and the content narratives, and that might not apply to this case, but just for in the future.
Well, and the ownership is a reflection of that. I want to address that point because that's really the key point to me.
Yep.
Is that if you were going to see 35% owned Ford, like if he was playing if they were playing the Chargers this week, Ford would be like 40% owned.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's going to be about 10% owned instead. So you're actually doing something, and it's because of that specific narrative, and there's some truth to the narrative. I don't want to get into all of it, but there's truth to it. That is the way Tennessee likes to play. But at the same time, you're now getting a guy who could be 40% owned at 10%, who's 4,800, and as a pivot off of these other chalky guys. Whereas he could squeak his way into 2 touchdowns. It's not like we don't need him to go for 150 yards and you know what I mean, all that. It's we just need him to get in the end zone a couple times, or we need him to get a couple catches too, which is totally possible with Watson back there. So I actually support the Ford thing because because the ownership. If he was going to be 30%, I would be talking about fading Ford entirely.
And not to spend too much time on this, but Bongo, again, I hope you didn't miss my point. I'm sure you didn't. You've been around for like a while. It wasn't like I'm saying that Ford's such a great play. I'm not saying the Titans have a bad defense, and I'm not saying that people don't underestimate the Titans defense. I'm just saying, like, just in general, when you're analyzing a play and you're watching content during the week, I mean, everything just kind of like aggregates to one freaking narrative. And when the ownership just completely just goes not the wrong direction, but just kind of just overshoots. It's just something to think about whether you're doing whether you're doing NFL or even the stock market or anything. Just don't let the narrative just get too carried away. That's all.
Yep. I'm just going to really quick go through my exposures. Kelly and Madison are both my highest owned running backs. I understand that, and Etienne and Pollard are the next two. But I am playing some Ford, and the guy who I think is interesting is, so you have the Kendre Miller as a take a shot on. I don't know how many snaps he plays. And I think it's interesting to play Tony Jones Jr. because if Kendre Miller didn't have this thing where he was coming back, we'd be playing Tony Jones Jr. a bunch, and he's 4,500. I don't know why we're not doing that. Brody, am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I know. No, I don't think you're wrong. No, I agree. Yeah,
Kendre
right.
Miller we have as the RB1, and so I'm using both of them a little bit. But I'm going to get some Tony Jones exposure. He was really good for them. Obviously, he scored 2 touchdowns. Not great. I like Brian Robinson as a little bit of a pivot off the other guys. I'm going to try to get a little bit more exposure to him. I've got him at 14% right now. I want to get a little bit more. Zach Moss, Ford are going to be a little bit overweight. Javonte Williams will be overweight. Those are pretty much it for me. And then I wanted to get to more Gibbs, but I couldn't resist the Etienne. You know what I mean? I wanted to get to more Gibbs, but I couldn't resist the Kenneth Walker. So I'm a little bit, and then I wanted to even get something from the Bears as a run back for my Mahomes, and I couldn't really find something that I loved. One guy who's not getting talked about as much, who I thought was going to be a little bit more popular today because of his price range is weird. I think Ramondre Stevenson makes for a really interesting tournament play. So I've got notes to get Stevenson a little bit more, and maybe use a little less.
Well, I want to tell you something really funny. So I can't really show you, but like this is like the actual pad I had. And there was one guy that I wrote down as like low-owned guy, and I literally couldn't read my own handwriting. So I didn't know who it was. And I was literally just scanning my sheet to see if I could figure out who had a running back that started with like an SL. And there wasn't one. And I looked and it meant ST. So it was Ramondre Stevenson, actually. That was the other guy I was going to mention. And I just couldn't read my own handwriting. So I was saying, like, listen, if it wasn't bad enough to play a running back against the Titans, how about try playing one against the Jets? So yeah, I think that Stevenson's going to be like 5% owned as well, and he's like certainly the top guy.
Yep. All right, let's jump into wide receivers. Rody, why don't you jump in and start off this one?
Yeah, all right. Receivers. So we got a lot of good options there at receiver. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson at the top. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams in the big game. Those are some of the guys I really like. Obviously, but you got like Michael Pittman maybe still in that Baltimore Indy game that we talk about Lamar on the other side to stack. We got Christian Kirk at 5'4". He's only showing like 10-ish%, but I think he's gonna be higher. Mike Thomas, Chris Olave, and that game. We like those guys. Zay Flowers. That Baltimore game again, he's only showing like 9-10%. It seems low with no Odell now, so those are a lot of guys I really like. And there's a really good price range on these guys too, so getting some of these guys in that 5-6K range. You even go back to Drake London Atlanta Detroit game that we kind of like that. Braxton Berrios now with no Waddle, he's at 3.6 in Miami. He's getting a little project up, not getting a lot of ownership. You want to go there. KJ Osborne is another lower owned piece, and Addison in that other game. Maybe they get some more work over Jefferson. So it'll be what Kelvin Ridley, with the Kirk. So yeah, I like a lot of those type of guys, kind of similar to what I'm stacking. Maybe some low end flyers. You got Josh Downs in that Indy game, 3.5. Tank Dell back to him again for Houston in a faster paced game at 3.6. Nico's at 5.3 in that same game. Jaden Reed, I didn't mention, but Watson's back this week. Dobbs is there too. He's like the third guy now, but like he might even open him up more in the middle now to get some more of those passes where he likes to take off and run with, so it's possible there. So, so just kind of mixing it up, all those good receivers in there, and then trying to find some lower owned different. I didn't mention Amon St. Brown. Hopefully he's got he's not getting that much ownership either in the game.
I think that partly because people didn't know whether he was going to play or not.
Yeah. So
Maybe
I know Josh Reynolds is active now. He was questionable too, and he's good to go. They said too just now. So he's only 4.2. So I mean, he's been getting a lot of work too, Josh Reynolds. So maybe Amon has that big game this week with a couple touchdowns in over the 100 yards. So look for that. So.
Yep. Sheets, how about you for wide receiver?
Yep. So once again, breaking it down first with kind of like the logical high-owned plays that make sense. That would be like the guys that you mentioned, like Jefferson from that game. You get everybody like Jefferson, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then that's and Tyreek Hill, especially with Waddle out coming from the Miami game, and then the two receivers for Jacksonville. Kirk and what's his name. An unexplored reality. Was that Zay Jones is out, which even further like cements, like target shares to those two guys. It was already, you know what I mean,
Right,
but nonetheless.
right.
So those are like kind of logical plays again as well. And as far as like pivots go, Rhodey hit on most of them. So let me just kind of stress Drake London and Amon St. Brown, both in the same game. Same thing. They're both like lower owned than the others, right? Not that they're going to be 2% owned or anything like that, but they're lower owned than the others, and they're in the same game, and they're in the dome, and listen on another slate that this game could have been different. You already mentioned Reed, and again, I have to consider what you said about what's his name being back in. The Tank Dell is a natural run back in that Jacksonville game, so that makes sense. You already mentioned Josh Reynolds, just with KJ Osborne you mentioned. I already mentioned, but just to stress again, Michael Thomas. Just a guy like that at very little ownership, I think, today. And then my punts, which again, I didn't think that you were going to hit on this one, but was the guy you mentioned I was going to ask you about this guy from the Indianapolis, this Josh Downs dude. So I didn't even know who that was, so I just wrote down Josh Downs. So that's pretty much where I am as far as receiver goes.
Nice. Like you guys, I don't know, like you guys, I do like all the chalky ones, but I'm going to get different with some of it. You have the Williams, Jefferson, Allen. I like all three of those guys, but then again, as I mentioned, you can always use Everett at tight end in that game and Hawkinson, who are going to be the lower owned parts of that game. I do think that Reed is still a very, very viable play, even as the wide receiver 3. Technically, I just watched them play, and I don't know, Rhodey, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that we have Watson back, but they're running plays for him. I mean, they're out there looking for Reed specifically, and that little pitch play they did to him for the touchdown. I just feel like there's a chance that we could see Reed have a nice game today. So I like the price. Obviously, I like the value. You said Berrios, and I want to make sure to get more Berrios because right now I kind of decided more on Craycraft. It seems to be a little bit more preferred overall by Tua. But thinking about it logically with no Waddle, if they're going to double Hill double time, wouldn't you want the underneath PPR guy, which we know Berrios can catch 10 balls, and that seems like the kind of spot where I would want to get some of him. I'm very high on Jordan Addison, as I mentioned. I like Marquise Brown as sort of just a weird one-off play from the later games. I still think 4,900 is too cheap for him in a game where they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. Tank Dell, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers being probably my favorite of that mid-range. I don't love the weather there, but I just want to bet on this guy every week until he's 7K. I believe that is where we're headed at some point. I think he's one of the more talented receivers in football. And then the value that you guys didn't mention as much that I love is I like the old man. I'm not going to play the quarterback, but I like old man Dalton to old man Thielen for maybe some love at 3,900 for Thielen. So those are and again I like the other guys you mentioned, Kirk, both Ridley, and then I'm going to be way overweight on all the Houston receivers. All right. Let's see. Let's move over to tight end, and we'll start off with Sheets at tight end.
Yeah. So the logical plays again. First at the top is Kelsey, and I imagine Hawkinson is going to take money also. And then with the Waddle out, Smythe, I imagine. The other guy who's probably going to be pretty chalky. I don't know if I want to commit too much ownership to this is Zach Ertz. He's 3,500. He's been getting targets and stuff in a good game script, but boy, oh boy, I mean it just I don't know. It just feels wrong. What can I tell you? When you very like you get shut out in the game, and I don't know. I don't know about that. The guys that I like is kind of other little lower owned. I would go back to the same guy that projected well last week. Didn't really do that much, but the Okongwu, I mean, he's not bad. The Schultz, I mean, not bad. But the guy who's he's very thematic for the stuff I'm doing this week is to go back to the Lions guy, Laporte. So just another guy from that game, which reminded me to even bring up the Jahmyr Gibbs as a running back, who I didn't talk about either from the Detroit game. So go back to another Detroit guy, and not to mention, that's all we're talking about. How about Kyle Pitts from the other side of the tight end in that game? So those are my kind of non-Kelsey, Hawkinson, Smythe type plays.
Nice. How about you, Rody?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Hawkinson call just because he's going to be a little bit lower on in that game. I don't think anybody's getting to, we didn't Travis Kelce. I mean, he didn't look great last week, but I mean, he come back. He's going to have a big game, I think. Mark Andrews in that other Indy game, the higher fast-paced game I like. Smythe's kind of the chalky one at 2,900 for Miami. Granson in the Indy game, Woods, the Jelani Woods there, so he's at 3-1, not bad. I like the Laporta call by Sheets. Maybe a little bit Musgrave too for the Packers. I mean, he's getting a lot of work. I like a lot of these rookie tight ends this year. Kincaid for the Buffalo too. They're the 3K guys that are getting work, that are running snap. They're out there on the field, so one of them is going to have a 2-touchdown game one of these days at 3K, and we're just going to like that we got to these guys in our lineup that we like. Schultz is an interesting one for Houston in that Jacksonville game. He hasn't looked good the first 2 games, but at 3.7, I mean, he's a good player. I think at tight end you could get. And then obviously Gerald Everett, I'm really high on him, but you got to watch out. 6'8" Parham. He's been getting Parham. He's been getting a lot of work too, and he's been even getting some passes caught. So they're kind of doing a split thing there. I mean, I'm a big Eifert fan. I can't even say it, but Gerald, I like him, but there's some split work there too. So those are kind of the guys I'm getting. Getting a lot of the 3K guys or trying to fit in some of these more expensive tight ends to kind of get a little different in the build.
Yeah, this is partly so I right now, other than Kelsey's my highest owned tight end, my second is Hawkinson, and my third is Gerald Everett. But I am worried because they are really they do look for Parham near the goal line, so it's a little concerning to me. But I want to get different in that game, so I'm going to have to stick with some ways that just whatever, close my eyes and hope it works. Then I get to Mark Andrews, then I get to Ertz and Laporta, and then Taysom Hill and Smythe and Musgrave. And then in the Detroit stacks, I'm going to use some Kyle Pitts. I know everybody's given up on Kyle Pitts. I am not one of them. And maybe if you can finally get the right game script for Ritter, maybe we can see him throw the ball a little bit. It's just hard when you've got good running backs, a great run blocking team, and you just love to run it so much. It's hard for me to make too many receivers. That's why I don't have Drake London this week. All right, we're switching over to defense. I'm going to start this one off just because I know Sheets' take, and we'll let Sheets remind everybody what he does. When I do have more interest in the chalky defense. Now, we don't have like the 25, 35% own defense like we did last week or whatever. But we do have some reasonable chalk on the Buffalo at Washington. Probably a little too cheap for me to pass up. So I'm going to actually be both sides of that game, especially because of the weather. I'm going to be high on both Buffalo and Washington. I ended up with the Bears because I wanted to spend down. It doesn't feel great to do that against Mahomes, but hey, like I said, he's got the ankle in one little play, and you never know. So the Bears are just because of the price, basically. I like Seattle a lot. I like the Jets. I like the Chargers, and I like the Vikings a little bit. Those are my main defenses. Why don't you go next, Brody, and then we'll let Sheets finish it off.
Yeah, I'm really heavy on the Bills too. I'm getting a little Jets in that game as well, $100 cheaper. I even threw a little Chargers in there because Kirk Cousins, turnover. I got some of the Bears too. I kind of mixed it up a little bit. I'm debating on kind of getting if I want to play any of these high-end defenses like the Cowboys at 4,400. They're quite expensive, but man, they've looked good this year, and they're playing the Cardinals. So I don't know if you want to go that high, but man, they could be pretty decent. But I'm going to stay down in these garbage defenses usually, even playing a little bit of the Panthers. I played a little Colts. Lamar's hanging that ball out there. Fumble, someone picks it up, takes it back for 6 or something. He's running around a lot. So even them at 2-4, I like. So some of the cheaper ones, 2-2 Bears, obviously. So yeah, and the Jets and the Bills are probably my more exposed. So
yeah. And for what it's worth, I wanted to point out, MJ pointed it out. I think you guys might have seen it, but Aaron Jones is officially out.
Oh, he is out.
Yeah.
That's interesting again.
All right. So let's talk about Sheets. Sheets, what do you got at tight end?
Defense, you mean?
I'm sorry, defense.
Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, I just think there's a lot of variance in defense, such that in MME, I don't like to play more than 20% of it. I wouldn't get that much of anybody this week anyway, but I'll reiterate the two highest or most logical defenses are going to be, in my opinion, the Bills and the Jets. Those are the two most logical ones. So for me, the 4 I'll identify. It'll be like kind of little low road at different price points. On the other side of the Jets game, I like the Patriots. I like Cleveland. I like Seattle and Kansas City against Justin Fields. So those would be my 4 kind of like non-Bills Jets. But I wanted to go over 2 other things. I don't know where we're going to be going after this. So 2 comments. Number 1 is regarding the Lions and the Falcons, that the Falcons definitely, prefer to jam the ball, run the ball down people's throats. What I like about that game is kind of like a game stack, is the way it works. Listen, the Lions are coming off a loss, and now they're at home. Like, if the Lions march down the field, and remember, I have these receivers for the Lions, right? And they score, they're up 7-0. Yeah, Atlanta can stick to the run, but if the Lions go up like 14-0, then this game can go freaking ballistic.
We say that every week though, but the Falcons never change. That happened last week to the Falcons, and they just stay. They just stay with the course.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, they've run the ball like 35 or more times, like 10 games in a row. So I have to.
And the other thing I would mention, I'll challenge you guys, but
yeah.
One thing that no one brought up in this thing, which a lot of people brought up over the course of the week, is that if you're not going to play Ford because of the run funnel or whatever, the pass funnel, you probably should be playing like Amari Cooper, right? I mean, like if it's that big of a deal that they're going to be forcing the pass, then they got to move the ball somehow, right? So I would imagine that these receivers for Cleveland would be somewhat playable between Jonathan Peoples-Jones or Njoku and or whatever. So it's not like Cleveland's not going to put up any points. So I think that, listen, your Ford is very, very underpriced given what his role could be. So if you don't like him because you think that that's just not going to work, they're not going to be able to run, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be playing the passing game there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The only issue I have is that Cooper is the clear guy you'd want, and the problem is, even though he didn't like he had a good solid game, like he had 10 targets, 7 catches. He's really, because he doesn't look like he has any burst right now. I don't know what the upside is like exactly, and it's a low scoring total anyway. But I actually like the idea. I'm going to probably get some Cooper anyway. We'll finish up with like a major take of the week or whatever, which is the way I always like to do it. Earlier, I gave mine with Rhodey, but I'll do a different one because I originally said Zay Flowers. That game is the weather's a little bit maybe making me a little nervous. I'm still going to have plenty of Zay Flowers, but he was going to be on the millionaire winning lineup. And for those of you who weren't there last week, I did get it right with Deebo Samuel is going to be in the winning lineup, the millionaire winning one. This week, I am going to say that Hawkinson is going to be on the. And I know that sounds like, oh great, you're taking the chalky game. He's projected to be 6% owned. So I'm projecting that Hawkinson is on the millionaire maker winner because I don't think people play him that much when he's that close to Travis Kelce, and so he and Flowers are my two sneaky, my two not sneaky ones, my two guys that I'm going to be well overweight on and that I think have a great chance to be in the millionaire winner. It doesn't have to be that kind of a take, but I have one other game take. I really think Arizona is going, and this is going to sound nuts. I think Arizona is going to keep that game close for at least the first half, maybe further. And I like them plus 12.5 against Dallas at home. And I think they actually could compete and potentially win. I really do.
Wow, that's a good. I just switched to Hawkinson. You're calling tight end in the lineup, and I had to play Arizona defense. So
let's go.
It was between Andrews and the Jets or Hawkinson and the Cardinals, and I went with the hot call on yours. I do want to give out one injury announcement. Actually, Christian Watson just got ruled out as well.
Let's go, Jaden Reed.
What?
Let's go, Reed.
Yeah, so Reed might be a little bit bigger bump now. So yeah, Watson and Aaron Jones are both out. You know, it's weird because they were both out there warming up and everything. That was kind of a weird one. So maybe the beat writers got that. I mean, we all got that wrong. We all thought they were both going to play. I mean, the questionable sign was removed out of the projections from Watson even. So that was kind of a crazy one. So
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so go Reed. So he might even still be a little lower owned because everybody's still reacting to all this news. So
yep. I hope so. I appreciate that. Sheets, any hot take for the week?
Yeah, all right. I'll go. I'll give the two spots that are in the winning millionaire maker lineup. And one of them I'll give some color. I will say that Jerome Ford goes for 150 yards scrimmage. Whether it's be running or passing or the combination of the two at 10% ownership, and everybody would go, "What the hell did we just do? Not playing him because of the pass funnel." And him paired with which is clearly the obvious play that's going to be on the millionaire maker, scoring 24 fantasy points will be the Chargers defense against Cousins.
Love it. I absolutely love the Chargers.
I have the Chargers. I said them.
And if you really want to win the Millie, you'll play the Vikings receivers with the Chargers defense.
That's the way you're supposed to do it. That is 100% the way you're supposed to do it.
No, we talked about that on the pick show, playing the defenses with the stacks or whatever. Some of those players put the players, yeah.
Yeah, the defense, people forget this. The defense should be used as part of these stacks as running backs. People don't realize if the defense scores touchdown, that means the receivers are getting more work, you know?
Hey, yeah, exactly. could be sneaky good late news from Butt Bongo Fiesta here. Or maybe I don't know if it's late news, but a reminder. Yeah, Packers' best cornerback is out. You combine that with the Packers, Reed being a little better play. That game stack is starting to look a little bit more viable.
Yeah, you get some combinations between that and Houston and the Houston Jacksonville, and then all of a sudden you can just spend up for Jefferson and Hill and play some combination of those guys. You know?
Yeah.
I like that.
You may have a lineup that I already built.
Oh, there we go. Well, okay, then we can chop it, Ruby. I'll chop $1 million with you. Why not?
Yeah.
Or 1.1.
We'll build some more of them here in a minute. So my big dog lineup. So this is sounding pretty good. So we'll have to go that.
All right. Any specific takes on FanDuel that you noted that would be any different?
Thank you for pointing it out. I think Lamar's price is more attractive over there. They actually moved him up a little bit. That's one that I noticed. Durham Smythe is significantly cheap. Smythe and Musgrave, 48 and 4,900 allow you to be pretty flexible elsewhere. And I really like Jordan Addison's price over there as well. I'm also using Damian Pierce as a pivot off of the chalky running backs. Moreover,
I'll just say for me, getting for whatever reason a little more Josh Allen on FanDuel. in no particular order, defense. Miami showed up a little more for me on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Running back, I got actually a little more Kenneth Walker and Bijan Robinson over there. I don't know why, but just because of pricing or whatever. And then wide receiver, I have to say that going back to the aforementioned Chris Olave looks a little better on FanDuel as well. So back to this freaking Saints nonsense. So yeah, that's what I have like specific to FanDuel.
Makes sense. All right, Rody, one hot take, and then you take us out of here.
Oh, I never usually give hot takes. You guys always are trying to give
I love
me
to
one.
get it. Come on, just one take. It's not that hard. Just not even a hot take. Just somebody who you like this week.
All right.
Strong take.
Alexander Madison's on the winning Millie Maker line.
Okay, there we go. That'll do. I actually like that. I think that makes plenty of sense.
I think we're both higher on Madison a little bit more, so maybe he gets a couple touchdowns. So
if you want to be high on it, let's just look at how. I mean, what did the last week the Titans ran the ball like 35 times? People love to run on the Browns. I'm sorry, on the Chargers. Let's go ahead with Madison. But Brody, take us out of here. Sorry.
All right, guys, have a good one, and as always, guys, let's get it.
Just one thing, Bobby.